Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Monday, August 17th. So, pretty nice way to start the week. Overall averages up pretty nicely with the Qs outperforming. The Qs finished up 1.16% for the day, and they were the only, well, almost the only index that rallied from open to close. So they finished up, they rallied about a 0.5% from where they opened. So nice adding on the gains. Once again, as we know, the overnight move is always a little bit greater than the intraday move, right? You should know about that by now. I talk about that a lot in my videos. That buying the close and selling the open is generally over time a greater trade than buying the open and selling the close. That proves itself again today. If we look at SPY performance again comes into the day. The overnight move up 30 basis points, doesn't do anything during the day. So depending on what names you are in, if you are in some of the more value type names last week, those names didn't have any follow through for today, which is kind of interesting because I thought that some of them, particularly the industrials, were looking fairly decent going, to the end of finishing up for the end of the week. But you had a nice move. I think biotech, great to see biotech. Let me zoom in here a little bit. Sorry, I'm pretty zoomed out. But biotech, was kind of wondering what was wrong with this chart last week, or what was wrong with this group. And in this particular group, a deal, once a deal is announced, which it was between Sanofi and was it PRNB, it could really get that biotech group going, especially the smaller cap names. So that was one of your best groups for the day. You can see gold miners had a fabulous day today, up 6.3%. So did gold. Gold finished up 2%. Talking about move after the open, gold actually out of all these. Gold had the nicest move from where that opened to where it closed, and for the day finished up 2.1%. But outside of that, biotech, again, very nice. I'm still having this Thinkorswim issue. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But here's what. So I took a bunch of screenshots because I didn't know if I was going to be able to bring up charts here, and this is XBI. Let's see if I can. Oh, there we go. Auto zoomed in. So yeah, this is really nice. I was talking about that pre-market this morning, saying that possibly this gets biotech moving a bit, and you can see up 3.5% today, and basically back in value. So that's a good sign. Also, the Qs. We'll just kind of look at this chart really quickly. Out to all-time highs again. So remains in this channel, right? Every time we've basically come into this channel, it's bounced pretty nicely. And anytime it gets a little bit extended, there's a little bit of profit taking. So the channel remains for the Qs. I won't even go over the S&P chart. I think honestly going over the S&P chart on the daily is a bit of a waste of time right now until we have a little bit of volatility, but it's in basic grind mode for the S&P. It's been getting smaller moves for now, but continues to move up and to the right. So that's what it is. I was talking about in the weekend, one of the weekend videos. We do two at Tribeca Trade Group. The first one is the macro one, and I said, hey, I wouldn't mind a little bit of volatility to the downside, considering that the S&P is in this grind mode. But I also don't mind something like this too, where risk on and some areas like tech and the home builders finished up 2.8%. Personally, I just don't want to see us get to a standstill, in terms of price action like we saw on Thursday and Friday of last week. But I think this was pretty constructive for the day. And then, it's also the kind of halfway through the month. Sometimes there is some new money that's put to work on the 15th of the month, which fell on the weekend. So that's that. In regards to this tech issue with Thinkorswim, I use Thinkorswim charts. Kind of a difficult day for that. I'll tell you, this type of thing happens. It doesn't matter if you're an institutional trader or you're a retail trader. I've been on both sides of the fence, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of outages on the institutional side too. It's just one of those things. It's frustrating. It's the old what we used to say when they always do these little upgrades on the weekend, and then on Monday it's a shit show. That used to happen to us all the time on the institutional side when they used to do these over the weekend upgrades, and we used to call them downgrades because half the time the systems wouldn't work for a couple hours. I'm still seeing these charts not fully loading as fast as they should be, and they worked for a little while, a couple times today, and then they just went out. So I'm not going to go back and forth and frustrate myself. I will tell you, if you get really frustrated with this stuff, just go for a walk. I get more frustrated when there's tech issues, and I think a lot of people do, than when they're having a bad day trading, because it just really kind of, you can't do much when that type of thing happens. So take a deep breath, go for a walk, and these tech issues, unfortunately, they happen, and they get me very frustrated too. But it's just what you kind of have to live with in the trading world is every once in a while you're going to have these types of outages. We did start a new type of program this weekend for Tribeca Trade Group members. Every weekend I put out a watch list. Here, I'll show you what the watch list looks like. So for the day, this watch list outperformed quite nicely, outperformed the Qs and outperformed the S&P, up 1.25% for the day. So I've been putting out these lists been doing this now for a while, and I've noticed that the last like 4 weeks in a row, and I just haven't been keeping the stats longer than that, but they've outperformed the market. Now, again, remember what outperform the market means. We've had 3 straight weeks of up weeks in the market, and I've outperformed each one of those weeks. We're going to get from time to time a down week too in the market, even though we haven't had one in a while. My goal is also to do so. For example, if the S&P finishes down 1%, my goal is to finish better than that. Even if it's down half a percent, that's called outperforming. So that's what I'll look to do, just so that there's full disclosure. And then what I'm doing, what I'm going to be doing is basically putting in order. There's a couple different like portfolio trading systems brokers that you could use. It used to be Motif. Motif is no longer around, unfortunately, but now it's Folio. And I'm also trying this M1 Finance. So I'm basically loading this watch list in, and it'll be a week-on-week trade. So I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see how it does. I like to try and experiment with different things. I also like to actually have, to have money out there in my trading type signals and so forth. I see so many of these guys on Twitter that they're just calling stuff, where they're like, "Oh yeah, I talked about this chart 2 weeks ago. Do you have anything in it?" No, I don't. I took profit, but people don't. It becomes like I think Twitter becomes very predatory with people who are trying to add followers and so forth. They're constantly saying that they called this or called that. I really like I'm against that type of stuff, and I always feel like there should be more honesty on Twitter about whether or not, like, every time my what I would love is if everybody would abide by a system on Twitter when they're tweeting something out. If you have a position, you could say, "I have a position." If you don't have a position, say you don't have a position. That's basically, I would love it if everybody, did that code of ethics. But there's a lot of people that really are trying to gather followers and gather subscriptions and so forth, and they're not going to be as honest as that, right? And I see it. I saw it today from one particular guy who was talking about, "Oh yeah, this is a setup that I posted a couple weeks ago." Okay, but you're not in the trade now, so why don't you just say that instead of trying to fool people, because that's essentially what you're doing. So anyway, my thought is always, when I put together something like this, I would rather have the trade on to talk about it, not talk about hypotheticals. So that's me. I know I'm a little bit different than a lot of the people on Twitter, but yeah. So our weekly little Market Webs watch list program, I compile a watch list. The other thing that I think is pretty interesting about this, something that I've just kind of been kicking the can with, is that when you put on trades, right? A lot of times, you've got a particular catalyst at the time for putting together a watch list or putting together names that you want to own right then and there. Once time passes, what happens is there's a little bit of bias, right? There may not be the same. You may be owning a name that is not showing you the same signal, and you may be holding on to a name a little bit too longer. So it's kind of interesting. I'm going to try this to see, and then basically put this trade on every Monday, take it off on Friday, and then basically put like a SPY beta position on as I take this portfolio off, and then I'll strike the new watch list every Monday. So anyway, that's one of the new programs that we're going to be doing, and I'm curious. I want to know. I want to see and kind of develop the performance and see how it works out over time, because this has been a really good system. That I think putting together this weekend watch list and then watching it outperform every week. So I hope I'm not jinxing myself, but I think there's something to this in the way that we're coming about and finding names and so forth, that it continues to outperform it, and I hope it does. I'm sorry that it has outperformed, and I hope that it continues to outperform. So anyway, I will be letting you know how this goes along as we start this again, to have skin in the game and not talk about bullshit hypotheticals, which half of Twitter talks about. So in any event, have a great night, everybody. And again, just try to, hopefully these tech issues don't happen again tomorrow. We didn't do our Q&A session today, which we normally do at 1 o'clock on Mondays and Wednesdays. We'll do that tomorrow. I just didn't think that there was any point when I can't bring up a SPY chart today in Thinkorswim. So have a great night, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.